What's up guys, Stephen Bogran here, Pro Physique. Today, what I'm going to talk about is if you should wear a lifting belt. So hey guys, Stephen Bogran, and we're back. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Hope everybody enjoyed the time with their family, their friends. You guys had plenty of good foods, worked into your goals, and are still on track to be successful. So, since it is now the holiday season, it is officially upon us. It is now socially acceptable to put up your Christmas tree and lights and to play the Christmas music. I want to talk about something that I've got some questions on for Christmas presents wise, and that is going to be a lifting belt. So, before I go into the kinds of belts, I would rather just talk about why a lifting belt might be necessary. So, the idea behind a lifting belt or a weightlifting belt is that it is going to allow you to create more intra-abdominal pressure, which is pressure inside your abdomen. That means you have to be able to utilize the Valsalva maneuver. That is what it is all about. Valsalva maneuver, you diaphragmatic breathing. So you would tighten your belt, breathe in your diaphragm, and push all that out against the belt all the way around. What that is going to do is that it's going to help support your spine during a heavy lift. Things like squats, deadlifts. Some people like to use them for bent over barbell rows. So it really doesn't matter what lift you want to do. Anytime where there is more pressure on your spine, that is going to help to create that inside pressure to push out against and support the spine from within. And it gives you something to push out against so that you can do that. So that is the purpose of a weightlifting belt. So you are going to see some different options out there on weightlifting belts. This is probably the most expensive belt you're going to find, or one of the most expensive belts you're going to find for powerlifting, and it's the SBD belt. The reason I have this belt and I like this belt is, well, one, because when I put it on, I had the best brace I've ever felt. But two, it is a mixture in between a lever belt, which is this concept, right? And a pronged belt, which is the concept of I can tighten it differently each time. So it's very convenient to use all in all. It is an expensive belt. I definitely think that it was worth the money, 100%. I will never need to buy another belt. And that will bring me to my first point. When buying a belt, buy nice, don't buy twice. There are a couple of reputable companies that you are not ever going to have to replace that lifting belt if you don't want to. Inzer is one of them, Iron Tanks is another one, SBD is another, and there are some others as well, but those are going to be my main choices if I'm looking for a belt. Okay? Those belts themselves are going to be good for a lifetime, and that is a big deal, because remember, it's a difference of $40, $40, and it's a lifetime's worth of use. It's definitely worth the extra cash. So keep that in mind when buying a belt, right? Buy nice, don't buy twice. So the next thing that you're going to be looking at is, do I want a 10 millimeter thick or a 13 millimeter thick, right? So that is going to refer to the thickness here. So what do we want, right? Well, it just depends. A lot of people who are lifting much heavier weights will tell you 13 millimeter. Others will tell you 10 millimeter if you're a smaller individual and don't need it. I've had both. This is a 13 millimeter. I definitely get a better brace. I feel more stable in the 13 millimeter, but I was able to get in position a little bit better, and I was a little bit more comfortable in the 10 millimeter. So it is completely up to you. Now, let's talk about the difference between belts, right? So what's the difference between a single prong, a double prong, a lever belt? And we're only going to discuss the good belts. Right now, I will discuss what I feel are the worst or the lesser belts in a moment. So remember, I said this is a sort of a mix between a prong and a lever. So a lever belt normally has a fixed lever. So what that means is instead of having all these holes over here, it'll have the one set of holes. This will be the part that moves, and there will be screws on the inside. And so you have the lever set at one place, you get ready, tighten the belt, then brace against. If you lose weight or gain weight, you have to take the screws out and move that buckle over to a different position to either tighten or loosen it so that it fits properly. This is a mix because now the lever and the buckle actually move over. So that's kind of the selling point of this belt in particular. As for prong belts, you can have a single prong belt or a double prong belt. I don't suggest a double prong belt as they're doing the same thing as a single prong belt, but they can be very difficult to get off and on at times. You get one prong out and it can be kind of a pain. With the single prong belt, you only have to worry about the one prong, so it's a little bit easier to deal with, and it still gives you that kind of pliability if you have a lot of bloating or change in weight all the time. So the main difference that I noticed with the prong belts to the lever belt is that the prong belts always have just that little bit of almost like a V out there for when the prong goes into the buckle, whereas the lever belts I don't ever feel that way with. So that is my personal preference and one of the things that I've noted. Now, one of the things that I think that you want to be on the lookout for when looking at belts is something that's very simple. Notice this belt is the same all the way around. All the way around, it's 100% the same. That means that it evenly, and that's important, evenly displaces and supports around your entire abdominal cavity. Now, you'll see many belts that come up in the back or down in the back for certain places. That is going to now change how evenly that pressure that you're exerting against the belt is being put out, right? So, that is why I dislike any kind of belt that is anything other than one specific width all the way around, right? It should never change. No go. And that is a very easy way, in my opinion, to tell a quality belt from a non-quality belt, right? Because what is the purpose for? It is for us to evenly displace pressure and support the spine. If the belt is not the same width all the way around, it is not doing that and therefore not fulfilling its purpose, okay? Now, talked a little bit about this. When is a good time to use a belt? So, this is a great question because, there's a lot of different opinions on that. And if you ever see like Jesse Norris, he does some heavy ass weights with no belt. And then there's lots of people who use belts for just about everything. So, even as a bodybuilder, I believe that a belt is a very helpful tool because as a bodybuilder, we still need to lift heavy loads and we still have to put in work. So our spine still needs to be supported and it still needs to be taken care of. That being said, at some point, we want our core to be strong enough to handle specific loads. And so for each person, I think that that's going to be different, and for each lift, that's going to be different. I go up to about 225 on my squat without a belt. So maybe getting close to 60% of my 1RM. Okay? Now, deadlift, I can go up to about 315. That's, again, pretty close to about 60% of my 1RM on those compound lifts. I am not the strongest guy in the world, and I don't have the strongest core in the world. However, warming up, I definitely don't always use my belt until I get to about that 50 to 60% range. Because once I start getting to that 50 to 60% range, all of this is now at a higher risk for injury. So, yes, my core is strong enough to handle it, but I don't want to push it. If there is one thing that I am big on, and if you're one of my clients, you will know this, it is injury prevention. Okay? Now, we cannot always 100% prevent injury. Things break down, forms break down, fatigue happens. That is the truth of training. And if you're training hard, there will almost always be something that is either nagging or on the verge of getting to that point and getting fatigued. Because we're working on that, right? We're making ourselves stronger. So we have to break things down to build them up. But we want to reduce injury risk as much as possible. So that is what the lifting belt is all about. It's all about reducing your risk for injury. So guys, the big answer to the question is hell yes. You should definitely be lifting with a belt, especially for heavy compound movements, squats, deadlifts, or anything where you're just out of position and you're loading the spine heavily, okay? Why? Because it's gonna help keep you safe and healthy, right? So you do have to use the Valsalva maneuver with it, okay? So some people will talk about blood pressure issues. This is an acute thing. I don't believe that there are any real safety concerns associated with the Valsalva that you need to be worried about. However, of course, always consult a physician beforehand. What you want to be looking at for price point and belt is going to change all over the place. Like I said, this belt is one of the more expensive belts on the market, and I paid a little over $200 for this belt. I had an Iron Tanks belt. It was one of their older ones, and I think I paid about $130 for that one. And of course, that was shipped to the States from Australia, but Iron Tanks was wonderful. I got the belt in less than a week when I initially ordered it, and in my opinion, Iron Tanks probably has one of the best buckles on a regular leather belt, not the SPD belt, that I have seen. Now, that was their regular 10mm belt. They do make nicer belts. They do make 13mm belts and really high quality leather ones. They're going to run you a little bit more. They sell theirs without the buckle. I do believe they have the best just traditional buckle on the market when it comes to strength, and they also have some cool ass colors on there too. So Iron Tank's also a good one. Inzer. Inzer's gonna cost you probably around the same, probably around anywhere from 100 to 120-ish in that area. The cool thing about Inzer is you can get a bunch of different colors, and I believe they even can do stitching if you order it properly, right? So if you order it far enough out. The thing with that one is that Inzer, if something's not in stock or you order something special, it can take a while. I've had friends who've had to wait 2 to 3 months for their belts before because they ordered something special. So if you're not in a rush and you have a belt to use, Inzer might also be a good option for you. But those are going to be probably my top 3 companies. So SPD, Iron Tanks, and then Inzer. Those are going to be my top 3 for belt manufacturers. But anyways, guys, I hope this gives you a little bit more insight about lifting belts, sort of how to use them, when to use them, and sort of what might be right for you. Anyways, guys, I hope that you have a great week. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and I'll be talking to you soon. All right.